spectator on the field throwing something at the referee. Oh dear, this we did not want to see.
The boy went to court and the judge found him $10 for throwing the can and $20 for missing. So I mean, everybody wanted the lad to get away. I mean, go on. I think he was only feeling the same as everybody in that stadium.
G'day there and welcome along to the third episode of the ACC's Agenda Kärcher's Blast from the Past, a four-part series where we look back at seminal and in some cases forgotten moments in the magnificent sporting history of this fine land. First, we took you back to the giddy summer of '92 when the young guns went gonzo. Then we went to the festering mud bath of Carlaw Park. And today, we alight on an astonishing but mostly unremembered day at Mount Smart Stadium during the bitter year of 1981. This is Blast from the Past, brought to you by the absolute sports lovers at Kärcher, the world's #1 water blaster brand, and the perfect machine to get the outdoors ready for summer.
This is the Agenda Podcast's Blast from the Past. Episode 3, Mount Smart Stadium 1981. All Whites v Kuwait in a FIFA World Cup qualifier that will go down in infamy.
And the police really having to protect him from one or two who want to take it out on the official, whose decisions incense the crowd.
Proudly brought to you by Kärcher Water Blasters. Get ready for summer and clean 50% faster with Kärcher.
Rightio, welcome along to Kärcher Blast from the Past. This one here is called Paying the Penalties. And today, we a pleasure to welcome along, as per usual, Dylan Cleaver, but the voice of football in New Zealand, Jason Pine. Thanks for joining us, Jason.
It's great to be here, guys. Yeah, looking forward to blasting back to 1981 with you both.
Yes, that's right. Today you're travelling all the way back to October the 10th, actually, to be exact, 1981 at Mount Smart Stadium for a World Cup qualifying match between the All Whites and the football superpower of Kuwait. Now, we're calling out the episode Paying the Penalties, and Piney, if ever a title summed up a match, this would be it, wouldn't it?
Absolutely right. Yeah, a couple of penalties awarded in this game, but so many talking points around it. A pivotal match in the All Whites run to the World Cup in 1982, but defined in many respects this game by the crowd, one particular member of the crowd, but also the actions of one man, Indonesian referee, Hardjowasito Sudarso.
Well done, Piney. That was a cracking effort. We've been practicing that first name here for some time.
I think we're going to stick with Sudarso. I think.
Sudarso from now on.
Sudarso, yeah.
Hey, so when you talk about referees having a tough day at the office, this goes a little bit beyond that. This was an astonishing display of one-sided officiating that, as Piney mentioned, incensed the crowd, and it defined the atmosphere of the day. I mean, if you look at 1981, it was a powder keg of a year in many respects anyway, because of the civil unrest that moved up and down the country during the winter of 1981. It permeated Mount Smart that day. This was not a Springbok Holtle racial tours issue, but it's still that sense of unrest permeated Mount Smart due to the rest performance. And obviously, on this podcast in particular, we don't promote random violence.
Of course.
But the ref drove people at the very least to a sort of temporary insanity.
Yeah, the numbers were astonishing because Kuwait, the tiny oil-rich nation running a large oil-rich World Cup campaign, were awarded 33 free kicks and 2 penalties. How many did the All Whites get, Piney?
The All Whites got 10 free kicks across the whole game. The first Kuwaiti free kick, by the way, was in the 10th second of that game. So Sudarso got going nice and early. And you must remember as well, we're talking about the 80s here when a lot more was let go. Football, or soccer as we probably called it back then, was a lot more robust. Yep. So a lot of the free kicks were considered very, very soft indeed.
We're going to frequently return to Mr. Sudarso over the course of the next 45 minutes or so, but we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves, Piney and DC. I want to dig into this match because it speaks to an astonishing campaign, and outside of dedicated football fans, which I'll include myself, and I don't reckon anywhere near enough Kiwis know about this game. And having done some research before this and read what you've done, DC, I am in that camp. I did not know anything a little bit about this campaign, but not really. But I didn't know about this particular game.
Well, the stakes here are enormous. Qualification for the 82 World Cup in Spain was the ultimate goal for both sides, and this was part of the final qualification cycle. The World Cup had expanded for the first time since 1954. It went from 16 to 24 teams. It's nothing like next year's 48-team extravaganza, it should be noted, but it offered increased hope of qualification, especially for, as you mentioned, non-traditional football nations, soccer nations like New Zealand.
Yeah, so Piney, give us a rundown of football, the football scene in the early 80s, because, I mean, looking at it from a cliched point of view, a lot of $10 poms floating around, and some say kids that were too scared to play rugby.
Yeah, that's probably a widely held view. The football scene, once again, the soccer scene, we all called it soccer back then. In the early 80s, we had a 12-team national league and a true national league. Some famous names, Mount Wellington, Gisborne City, Woolston Working Men's Club were in there. I mean, what a brilliant name.
Hamilton City Rovers, were they in
all
there?
All of them.
My favourite was Stop Out. Stop out. What a name for a team.
So good. So most of the New Zealand players, in fact, almost all of them played in the National League.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, if you look at the 22-man squad that eventually went to the World Cup in 82, 11 of the 22 were born in New Zealand. The other 11 were born in the United Kingdom. So there was a massive English, in particular, influence on the national side at that time, including both coaches, John Adshead and the brilliantly permed Kevin Fallon as well.
That's funny that the perm was huge back then, because I've seen a photo of my dad in 1984, and he has a perm, like a proper perm and a moustache. And I was like, that is an outrageous look. But obviously it was okay for men to get perms back then.
Kevin Keegan was the forerunner, I think, with a quite magnificent coif.
I might try and bring the perm back. It's quite a high maintenance hairstyle though. Okay. So by the time the All Whites have played Kuwait, DC, hadn't they? That had racked up an astonishing amount of air miles, haven't they?
Yeah, you're going to have to bear with me for a little bit here.
Okay.
But if this was a modern campaign, they would have been awarded life membership of the Corrie Club very early on. And you have to follow this process very closely because qualifying was dead set wild in those days. The Asian and Oceania federations were awarded 2 spots in Spain.
In total,
and 21 teams from those regions entered. Iran pulled out, and that left 20 teams that were divided into 4 groups for what was called the first round.
Yes.
So that's all pretty simple so far. But no, of those 4 groups, they all had different rules to find a winner. Groups 1 and 2 had 5 teams, Group 3 had 4 teams, and Group 4 had 6 teams, divided in half to be Group 4A and Group 4B. Are you with me?
Jesus Christ. I'm kind of.
Yeah. No, if you're not with me, don't worry, because I don't think the organisers did either. New Zealand's group was actually the easiest to follow. They had 5 teams and they played a home and away group. The best team qualified for the final round. But that meant travel, unlike Group 2, which was staged entirely in Saudi Arabia, and Group 3, which was staged entirely in Kuwait. And New Zealand's group was the Trans-Tasman foes Australia, and Indonesia, Chinese Taipei, which is called Taiwan now, and Fiji. New Zealand started with a thrilling 3-3 draw with Australia at home, then a 0-0 draw away at Taipei. But from then on, they were magnificent, winning every match, including 4-0 and 13-0 versus Fiji. And then they had a 2-0 win at the SCG, which is still arguably their greatest performance against Australia. And I remember this game vividly, actually, watching it on just kind of grainy. Yeah. We would have had black and white TV in those days, I think. We're very late adopters of colour. And it included a magnificent header from near the penalty spot, near the edge of the area, actually, from the late Grant Turner.
New Zealand playing with bags of confidence now, looking a good side. Cole, Grant Turner, there's the header, in the back of the net, 2-0, New Zealand 2-0. What a brilliant build-up by New Zealand. A magnificent run by Grant Turner to start with, left Stevie Wooddin free. He strung a 40-yard pass over to Keith Mackay and knocked in for Grant Turner to head home. A magnificent header.
So, Piney, I mean, were we miles better than Australia then? Because it seems like 0-0 and then 2-0.
Yeah, no, we weren't. But that was a surprise. It was a surprise that we beat Australia. But yeah, Grant Turner's header that day is just utterly iconic. There'd been a lot of chat in the lead up to that game. A couple of the Australian coaching staff had said that they'd liken the All Whites or New Zealand's soccer team to the effluent that often flowed through Sydney Harbour. That was the kind of build-up that we had to that game. So no shortage of motivation.
That's some good stuff. So we won the group?
Yeah, we won the group comfortably and qualified for the final round of 4, which was all the group's winners, alongside Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and China. And from that group, 2 would go to Spain. Okay. So we're now in a 50-50 scenario. New Zealand featured in the first 2 matches, which was a 0-0 draw away at China and a 1-0 home win against the same team. So it was clear, that maximum points from home games was going to be absolutely critical. Then Kuwait rocked into town.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break and come back with the infamous match, All Whites versus Kuwait from Mount Smart Stadium. Okay, fellas, the stage was set at Mount Smart. The crowd was building to 21,000, which was massive for soccer or football back in those times. Just months earlier, they'd beaten Chinese Taipei in just in front of 3,000 hardy souls at the same ground. So this was huge. On the surface, it's 2 absolute minnows of kind of world football. Rugby mad New Zealand with a population in 1981 of 3.1 million versus a country of 1.6 million people with no discernible sporting pedigree out of Kuwait, but they had money, and money had bought the Kuwaitis the best facilities and coaching. And they also bought a support crew, or as the commentator put it, a strange noise.
You might be wondering what the rather strange noise is coming from the far side of the ground. But the Kuwaitis have brought their drummers with them. There they go.
So Piney, I mean, some of that footage is sensational. We're going to play some of that commentary throughout this podcast. It's one of the greats. What would you make of the stylistic approach of each of these teams?
Well, I think New Zealand back then were based very much on a try and beat us if you can approach. They were very, very hard to break down, robust, kind of big, defensive presence. Kuwait, on the other hand, had progressed to this stage of World Cup qualifying through a very skillful, possession-based style. So it was very much a contrast in styles of the nippy, quick, skillful, technically efficient Kuwaitis and the very, very robust, hard to break down All Whites.
So it's funny with the Kuwaitis. I haven't heard of their football team since. Are they still around? Are they competing in the Asia?
Yeah, they're still there. They're still there. I think what they did in '82 was probably what we remember. When you say the word Bahrain, you think about All Whites Bahrain 2009. Yes. When I hear Kuwait, I'm instantly transferred back to 1981. They are still around as a country, obviously, and as a footballing team. I mean, everyone else is going to go to the US next year, so maybe they are as well.
Well, true. Well, money gets you everywhere in the football scene. Let's pick up the action. In the first half. It's tight, cagey affair for most of the first half hour. But New Zealand had a strike weapon, not as famous as Winton Rufer, but just as effective on the international stage, Piney.
Absolutely, yeah. One of the great woolly backs, Steve Wooddin. Now, this is an English-born player who'd left Tranmere Rovers to come to New Zealand, played for Dunedin City, went and played a bit in Australia, and then back at Christchurch United. But the peak of his career was this World Cup campaign. He was absolutely superb, and it was no surprise at all that he opened the scoring in this game.
Steve Sumner, well won. Good tackle by Mayouf. But the pressure is still on. Out by Walid. And a fine goal! Oh, brilliant goal by Steve Wooddin! Brilliant goal! Marvellous strike by Steve Wooddin. It hardly came off the ground. And no wonder the crowd are going mad. Oh, that was a lovely goal.
What the hell, you mentioned there one of the finest woolly backs in the game. What
Can I break in there, Michael?
Yeah, is that a technical football position?
Very technical term, but not football. A woolly back is someone that grew up around Liverpool but not in Liverpool. And
right.
It's believed the term came from, particularly in the sort of Tranmere area over in Birkenhead, they would come over the River Mersey to work on the Liverpool docks, and because they weren't as tough as the locals, they used to coat their back with wool before they lifted the coal sacks around. So they were known as woolly backs. But then it became a kind of pejorative term for anyone not from Liverpool, basically.
Okay. That's quite good. I like that. Like pussies. So they were pussies.
Yeah,
it's a great Wooddin goal, though, isn't it? You know, the lethal left foot of Steve Wooddin is what I remember very vividly about that World Cup campaign. Perfectly placed into the bottom corner. That was his 6th goal of that World Cup campaign. And when New Zealand needed a goal, and often the opening goal during that campaign, it was Steve Wooddin who provided it.
Okay, the camera operators on the day must have expected it to end in row Z, because they did a dreadful job of picking it up. Thank God the commentator must have been watching it live. So the All Whites are up by 1. The referee's already making questionable calls, and the tension is rising. How long until referee Sudarso inserted himself into the narrative again, Piney?
Not very long indeed, and this was the first big controversial incident. Apart from all the niggly little free kicks that he was whistling, he gave a penalty early in the second half, and according to Steve Sumner, who the penalty was given against, and everybody watching, completely unmerited, a ludicrous penalty decision.
And Barry is onside, and they're in a bit of trouble here. And a penalty's been given. Penalty's been given, judging from the referee's signs, that was for handball.
Yeah, he was struck on the upper body by a ball from a Grant Turner clearance, actually, and Sudarso immediately blew for a penalty. Within the wink of an eye, I think Sumner would later comment. He sort of said about the situation, there was absolutely no intent. This is Sumner speaking. You could actually see the play just continues momentarily. Like, nobody's appealing.
Nobody's yelling at the ref.
There's no concern on the All Whites' part that this is about to be a major thing in the game. And but the eagle-eyed Sudarso spotted the unspottable.
Yeah, it was a tough call to say the least. But Richard Wilson, the All Whites goalkeeper, was a noted penalty stopper.
And so Richard Wilson, who's had this record for 10 full games. Oh, he saved it! The hero of the hour, they all want to congratulate him. And the crowd on their feet. 910 minutes as he faced this shot from Jessam, and he saved it.
So, a brief moment of joy then before we get to the second and arguably even more infamous penalty, Piney.
Yeah, this one is even more inexplicable than the first, if that's even possible. The first one isn't a penalty in any universe. The second one is just completely innocuous. A cross comes in, John Hill is turning away, and John Adshead said later that he said to Kevin Fallon on the bench, he's chickened out, because he's turned his back rather than come full force to try and block the cross. So he's not even facing the ball. It strikes him, I guess close to his arm, and no Kuwait player appeals. And then the whistle blows and everybody goes, what's happened? What has happened here?
To be fair, the build-up play from Kuwait to that for that penalty, non-penalty,
yes,
was absolutely wonderful. It's hard to pick up exactly who the defenders were, but Naeem skinned either Bobby Armand or Adrian Elric, and that created the opportunity for the cross. The decision itself, however, I mean, Piney's right. It was absolutely bonkers. As it happened, so was the aftermath.
3 players in the middle. Naeem. And it hit the crossbar. And another handball given. Another handball given on the edge of the area. But the ball surely then struck hand. That did seem to be very, very harsh indeed by the referee. And it's going to be Faisal who takes it, and we got a spectator on the field throwing something at the referee. Oh dear, this we did not want to see. Spectator rushing after the crowd. But I sincerely hope that he's caught. There will be no further play until he sorts this out. And the culprit has been apprehended.
Interesting. I didn't know about this at all, this little piece that happened, after the awarding of the penalty. But who was that young man?
The culprit was a high school student named John Christensen, and he became this funny sort of folk hero. While the commentator tut-tutted in those stentorian BBC tones, the rest of us at home watching and judging by the cheers of the crowd also were sitting there going, good on you, son.
Yeah, because he came running in from the right, didn't he? Came across the penalty box, hurled looked like one of those old steel cans back in the day that you tear the tab off. I'm not sure. Maybe it was one of Richard Hadley's cans of beer. But did it hit him? It kind of glanced him, didn't it? Or it went near him?
It went near him, but he reacted.
Yeah, certainly did.
Yeah, and former Herald columnist Chris Ratter, who picked up the story way back in 2002, actually, and he wrote that John Christensen, the sixth former who threw the can at Indonesian soccer referee Sudarso at the World Cup qualifier 20 years ago, ended up in court and was punished with 3 months periodic detention.
That's quite harsh, getting 3 months PD.
PD was not good in those days either.
No.
Besides state highways picking up rubbish.
Yeah, I can remember them down at my primary school. He still way well clear of them.
One of the reasons that he may have got such a harsh punishment was that he showed no remorse for his action at the time, and when the All Whites gather for a 20-year reunion soon, he is invited. A sponsorship deal involving the company whose can he biffed has even been arranged. Christensen, though, is unsure if he wants to attend, having had this thing thrown at him, see the pun there, for the past 20 years.
See, in the meantime of all of this, so John Christensen's run off, and he's basically being enveloped by the crowd who try and save him. Eventually, as you say, is detained. But meantime, referee Sudarso now is getting the match organisers out onto the field, and this game is in very real danger of being abandoned, because you can't have regardless of how terrible the decisions are, you can't have guys running on the field and throwing cans at the referee. So Sudarso wanted to...
Even if it's funny. Like, I find it funny now.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think the overall reaction to it was probably just, we all thought, he was demonstrating the frustration of us all.
Yeah.
But Sudarso wanted to ensure the safety of he and his officials. So the game was halted for, I think 7 or 8 minutes. While Charlie Dempsey was out there in his suit, a couple of other officials, and eventually they did calm the situation down and ensure the safety of the match officials and the visiting team, and the game was allowed to go on.
Yeah, I mean, it was high-stakes drama. Charlie Dempsey, was forced to intervene. And
Charlie Dempsey, for those who not in the know, who's this character?
He is the head of New Zealand football and a big personality to boot.
Is he New Zealand football or Oceania football? Did he go on to be the FIFA representative for Oceania?
Yes.
He did, and he courted controversy in that role as well when he famously didn't vote for the host of the 2006 World Cup because of what he called intolerable pressure. There was all sorts of rumour floating around at that time. But yeah, at this time he was head of New Zealand football and had to be extremely diplomatic, really, to make sure that the game carried on. Although diplomacy might not quite be the right phrase when he chatted to Sudarso. Dylan?
Yeah. Do you call this diplomacy? According to his biography, he said, if you call this game off, it's the last game you will referee. I'm warning you, call this game off and you have had it.
That's 1981 diplomacy at its finest. So the penalty this time was slotted away calmly enough by Faisal Ali Al-Dakhil. One of my favourite players. And to be fair, Kuwait's second goal was an absolute cracker.
Goal at the second time of asking. Here's Naeem. It's curling. Yassam! And a fine goal. Really flung himself at it. The ball was curling, and Richard Wilson very, very disappointed. Very disappointed, but Yassam hurling himself. What, about a foot or so above the ground, got in the header and gives Kuwait a 2-1 lead.
Yeah, disaster struck for New Zealand in the 90th minute when Jassim Yacoub, an absolute goal-scoring legend for Al Qadsiya in the Kuwaiti League, stooped to header in from near the ill-fated penalty spot. In normal circumstances, the All Whites would have had the best part of 10 minutes to equalise, given the amount of time lost for the can-throwing imbroglio. But Sudarso had had enough and promptly called time, eliciting another chorus of boos and the strange sight, in New Zealand anyway, of police running from all corners to surround the whistleblower.
So he calls it off early. So he's in those days, Piney, I guess that the referee was the runner of the time, like just had a watch on his wrist. He didn't have any TMO. There was no one running a clock and stopping the clock. He was like, I'm out.
Yep, referee was sole judge of time. None of holding up a board with the minimum minutes. That came much later. Sudarso just wanted to get out of there. He wanted the game to end and to get out of there.
Right, so the police run on. They form a huddle around the referee. So this wasn't Ross Morant's Red Squad used for the Springboks tour, but rather the old school bobbies wearing like big white hats that look like kind of tits with a nipple on top of it, surrounding their heads.
We have to bring those hats back. They're magnificent.
Piney, I mean, did they need to do that?
Yeah, they did, because the crowd did invade. About 100, 200 people got on the pitch and headed straight for Sudarso. So he would have been mincemeat had they got to him. Luckily, the white nipples surrounded him and escorted him off.
Well, the referee not allowing as much time for stoppages as we made it brings the game to an end to a chorus of boos. And I'm afraid his part in the game, as he's immediately surrounded by policemen, his part in the game had a sad effect for New Zealand, and the police really having to protect him from one or two who want to take it out on the official, whose decisions incensed the crowd. And unfortunately there was one idiot who took action into his hands, and there are a few others who are trying now, and that is not a scene that we wanted to see.
There's a great story about how when he got into the tunnel, Kevin Fallon and his marvellous perm got down there and pinned him up against a wall and said, I don't know how you sleep at night. I don't know how you sleep at night.
Yeah, well, I'd say he'd sleep quite comfortably given what he probably got as a result of it. Look, obviously incredible scenes. And I can't really believe this match is unremembered by so many, myself included. Dylan, this should be taught in schools.
Yeah. I mean, it's when Sudarso managed to escape into the rooms, when he managed to escape Fallon, the crowd actually turned on the Kuwaiti players as well, which was pretty ugly.
That's funny because the referee got more protection than the players. I'd say the modern game, it's the complete opposite. You'd have security surrounding Lionel Messi. The ref would just be thrown to the wolves.
Yeah, I mean, Sumner would later confirm that, unfortunately players were attacked. And if I can add somewhat controversially maybe, that even though the ref was appalling, my memory of the game, as fuzzy as I probably was as a 10-year-old, but it's kind of later confirmed by watching the replay, is that, honestly, Kuwait were the better team on the day and certainly played more eye-catching football.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. They probably deserved to win the match. I think New Zealand had a very good first half and they scored their goal, but then after the break, they were really thrown by those decisions and just couldn't get going and did allow Kuwait back into the game. It does say a lot, though, about the team that John Adsett had mobilised under him and the fact that it had captured the imagination of the public, that it was so highly charged. Just a couple of little postscripts as well. Sudarso and his two linos flew out to Sydney the next day to do their next assignment. Baggage handlers at the airport put their luggage on a flight to Los Angeles. So that was brilliant from them. And Charlie Dempsey the next day, to cool off, went to play a round of golf at Remuera and hit the only hole in one of his golfing career the next day. So it wasn't all bad for Charlie. But, you have to remember, this is a country where the previous two home grounds for international games in Auckland have ended up under the motorway in Grafton Gully, that's Blandford Park, and slipping down the side of the hill in Newmarket Park. So getting 21,000 along to an athletic stadium to watch a game of soccer back then, amazing, really, how the nation just mobilised behind this team.
Oh, that's legendary. I'm still enjoying the baggage handlers, actually, to be honest, that you'd have. You've also, they would have just got high fives from their bosses as well. Did you guys put those bags to LA? Hell yeah. Like, good on you. Yeah, sweet. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, actually, on this, because obviously there's a legacy from this game and a great story to follow this. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back with that. Okay, Dylan and Piney, let's talk about the aftermath of this game.
Yeah, well, the immediate aftermath was messy. The dressing room following the game was described by Steve Sumner as being like a bomb site. The incident involving the spectator assaulting the referee was a major issue that New Zealand football had to deal with. The match officials would have compiled reports. They would have been unkind to New Zealand and its ability to host top-level football.
Yeah, but in reality, All Whites were beaten 2-1, obviously in a highly controversial circumstances. The referee has been hit with a can of beer and just avoided being assaulted at full time, and the visiting team has been attacked while leaving. Now, I know the answer to this, but did the campaign completely collapse after this?
Well, I'm just going to jump in here before Piney takes us through the glorious conclusion of that campaign to note that things very nearly did fall apart, in fact. Their next match was an encounter with the weakest team in the final round, Saudi Arabia, and it was a home match, and they only escaped with a 2-2 draw after a young Ricky Herbert, also magnificent header here.
Great lid.
Scored very late in the piece with a towering header. Still, it was a crushing blow and meant they had to, one, get something from their trip to Kuwait and then rely on other results.
Yeah, and going to Kuwait after what had happened in Auckland,
yes.
I mean, absolutely intense. 20,000 people turned up in Kuwait. They'd seen all the vision of what had happened in Auckland. They were just willing to absolutely give it to the Kiwis. One particularly vicious banner, "Go back to your kangaroos." still utterly iconic.
That one hits deep.
Oh, that burns. That stings. Look, we should just go. But New Zealand played really well that day. They were 2-1 up. Steve Sumner's put this free kick into the top corner. Cracking goal, and it's 2-1 late on, and we're, middle of the night back here. 10-year-old me is just willing them to hold on, but Kuwait equalised right at the end to make it 2-2.
New Zealand have conceded another corner. The seconds ticking by. I make it, we're into the final 60 seconds of normal time. As another corner comes over, Wilson climbing high again, didn't reach it, it's gone in, Kuwait have scored a late equaliser. Oh, what a terrible, terrible blow. What a terrible setback for New Zealand. In the final 60 seconds of the match, that corner knocked on by Sammy, the tall central defender. The touch was all that was needed. The ball has gone into the net, and all of a sudden it looks as though New Zealand's celebrations have been cut dramatically short.
So what the upshot of that was that New Zealand had to then go to Saudi Arabia, and in order to go to the World Cup, they had to win by 6 clear goals or 5 clear goals to force a playoff against China. Now, given they'd got 0, 1, 1, 2 and 2 in their 5 matches up till then, scoring 6 or even 5 seemed very, very unlikely.
Yeah, especially because there's an added wrinkle there that the ground at Riyadh was an old-school AstroTurf, and most of the team had never encountered that before.
Was there AstroTurf back then? Obviously, in Saudi, they probably didn't have the technology to grow grass at that stage.
Well, I don't know, but yeah, Riyadh it was like sandpaper. It was, there was pictures of the New Zealand team training there, and they'd slide tackle because that's what you did in football, and you'd end up losing half of the skin off the side of your thigh. So very different. But out they went, having to win by 6, as I say, to qualify for Spain, or even win by 5, and somehow they're 5-0 up at half time. It's incredible.
Look, I'm no football expert, Piney, you know that. But there is something that doesn't quite compute for me here. They need 6 goals, and they get 5 before half time, away from home, on unfamiliar AstroTurf, despite not being a team renowned for scoring buckets of goals.
If there's a little touch of cynicism in there, Michael, and I do detect it, it's probably not justified, though. We can say that goalkeeper Salim Marwan, which sounds a little like Salim Malik, didn't have his strongest outing.
Here's Brian Turner's worked really hard and helps to win that throw off Jawad. Sumner takes. Sumner again. Clipped in towards Rufa. Headed down for Wooddin. Can it come to his left foot? It does. Oh, it's in! Steve Wooddin has scored and it's 3-0 to New Zealand. What was the goalkeeper thinking of then? But who really cares?
And it got worse. It got worse for Salim shortly after that.
A marvellous build-up again by New Zealand. Wooddin with the confidence to go it alone and chips it across the goal mouth. Oh, he's runs loose and it's 4! It's 4 to New Zealand! Rufa forcing it home after Wooddin's cross come short had been dropped by the goalkeeper. And it's difficult to believe, but it's really happening. It's Saudi Arabia 0, New Zealand 4. Winton Rufa forces home his second goal of the game.
And believe it or not, worse.
2 minutes to go to half-time. Saudi Arabia 0, New Zealand 4. Marzouk on the ball running through here, and in goes Wooddin and clips it goalwards, and again collected an injury, and in fact the referee has given a penalty. The referee has given a penalty. Wooddin goes down under that challenge from Marwan, and a penalty has been given.
The commentary there, I'm expecting Jack Lovelock to win the gold medal at some stage, but Brian Turner ended up clipped that penalty home. They led by 5-0 at half-time, but that was the end of the scoring, Piney.
Yeah, which is crazy, really, when you think they needed to win by 5 to force the playoff. They're 5-0 up at half-time. Surely they can get at least one in the second half. And it wasn't through a lack of trying. Rufa, Wooddin had some good chances. Duncan Cole hit the bar with a header. Salim even redeemed himself with a couple of good saves. The crazy thing is, if Saudi Arabia had scored a goal to make it 5-1, they would have had to score another. Would they have had the wherewithal to do it? It didn't matter. It finished 5-0.
So strange game. What did it actually mean, though?
Well, what it meant was that Kuwait got direct qualification, but New Zealand and China ended up tied on points and goal difference. So they had to meet in a one-game playoff in neutral territory. And again, the politics of this all got very fascinating. New Zealand was originally slated for Kuala Lumpur, but New Zealand protested that Kuala Lumpur gave China too much of an advantage. So FIFA decided upon Singapore, which was filled with about 58,800 Chinese and 1,200 New Zealand Navy squaddies on a posting in the region.
Yeah, it might not have been a neutral ground, but January 10, 1982 just became one of the most iconic, immense days in our New Zealand football history.
Steve Wooddin, good chance, and that's a goal! Steve Wooddin has opened the scoring.
Sounds pumped.
The header by the defence, back, and Steve Wooddin latching onto it and slamming it into the right-hand corner.
Any idea who the commentator was, Piney? Because he certainly can't be accused of having your sense of occasion, shall we put it?
I don't know who it is. I know Alan Richards, the cricket commentator and former first-class cricketer, was involved, but I think he might have been doing the radio commentary. I'm pretty sure that's not Alan Richards, but yeah, there wasn't great excitement. I might have approached that such an iconic goal slightly differently if I had the mic that day.
Right, and that was a wonder goal from was that a young Rufa?
Yeah, Winton Rufa, the flick on from Grant Turner. Winton Rufa, still only 18 years old. Jesus. Incredible prospect, and as we know, went on to have a wonderful football career. But so 2-0, it's like, we're there. But if they thought it was going to be comfortable, they had another thing coming.
The referee has blown his whistle inside the penalty area. It looks like a free kick to the Chinese. New Zealand is on the 6-yard line. Sustained pressure from China. And China have scored. It is Chang Dong from the set play under pressure. New Zealand conceding the free kick, and a tap to Chiang Dong.
Yeah, players talk about it being so hot and then being so drained that they they literally could not remember the final 15 minutes, which was probably just as well because they were tense.
New Zealand have to hang on for another few moments while the referee allows play to continue and the Chinese come back yet again. A vital block by Bobby Armand on Yu Hua. Still the pressure is maintained. Well into injury time. Wilson punching away. Wooddin slamming it upfield. Lee is up by the halfway line and New Zealand has won the match. Mission accomplished, New Zealand. Mission accomplished, New Zealand's finest footballing hour. And the referee takes the ball. Grant Turner is absolutely shot.
So, there you had it, gentlemen. This team of semi-pros were going to Spain where they would eventually win the World Cup.
Almost win the World Cup.
Yeah, they didn't win the World Cup, but for a first outing, it wasn't too bad. They were a tough group. They had Scotland, the Soviet Union, and Brazil, a team that featured Zico, Socrates, Falcao, Adair, largely regarded as one of the best teams to not win a World Cup, actually. They lost 5-2 to Scotland, Wooddin and Sumner scoring the goals, 3-0 to the Soviets, 4-0 to Brazil. But the joy was the journey, right? The joy was the journey. The destination at the end was really just a little bit of icing on the cake.
Yeah, I knew all about that campaign, like of them going to Spain, but I never knew the build-up, that whole qualification side of it. So the qualification campaign was full of adversity, but the match at Mount Smart, the penalties, the assault on the referee with the beer can, the attacking of the visiting team, stands out as the moment football really arrived in New Zealand. And on that, we'll finish this episode of Blast from the Past. I'm certainly more educated because of that. Piney, thank you very much for your time. I can see the joy in your face about talking about football games of the past. It's like a kid in a candy store. You've got books in front of you there that you've read in preparation. So thanks very much, Piney.
I just wish I knew where Mr. Sudarso was now. I wonder what became of him, and did he ever get reunited with his luggage?
Well, maybe we should look at our next series. We should look into forgotten villains and then find out where they are. Dylan, thank you very much for that. Our final episode of Kärcher Blast from the Past, we are going back to 2011 Eden Park, Rugby World Cup semi-final.
Can't wait.
This is the Agenda Podcasts Blast from the Past. Proudly brought to you by Kärcher Water Blasters. Get ready for summer and clean 50% faster with Kärcher.